At 6:30 p.m. on July 29th, 2023, a 15-year-old girl named Talia Davila Diaz. Talia lived in a tiny, isolated village in Peru that was literally in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. She wanted to go get a grapefruit and bring it inside and make juice for her family. Talia was scared. Over the last couple of weeks, people in Talia's village had been claiming they were seeing these shadowy figures lurking in the tree line with these bright green eyes that would occasionally seem like they were hunting the people of the village. The rumor around the village was that these shadowy figures were actually Pelacaras, which translates literally to face peelers. People in Talia's village believed that Pelacaras were foreigners who would kidnap locals and cut their throats and peel the skin of their face off and then sell their body fat on the black market. They began performing nightly patrols to keep the villagers safe. And so after taking one more look around, she took a breath and then rushed out to the tree. She grabbed a grapefruit, and as she was turning around, now standing between her and her back door were these two hulking dark figures. One of them was like so tall it was practically the size of a tree, and they both had these piercing, glowing green eyes. Their faces were grotesquely elongated. The really tall one began sort of gliding towards her, and then suddenly Talia was being grabbed and thrown to the ground. These two figures descended on her and pinned her there, and then one of them reached down and pressed their hand over her mouth and her nose, and then she sees the other one is holding what looked like a box cutter or a knife, and they put it right up to her neck. And so she has this sudden burst of energy and she manages to push them off of her, and when she did, their hand came off her mouth and she screamed out for help. And then she heard footsteps and she knew it was the night patrol coming to save her. And so at this point, the figures released Talia and she scrambled to her feet and immediately ran towards her house right as the night patrol came bounding into her yard, and one of the men had a gun and he raised it and began shooting in the direction of the figures. And these dark figures, they were like levitating in the sky, and they were looking down at Talia and the night patrol with their glowing green eyes, and they just drifted off into the night and disappeared. Talia ultimately would not suffer any physical injuries from this encounter, but mentally, she was a wreck. And in fact, ultimately, the Peruvian government would get involved after this encounter and they would investigate. And they would ultimately conclude that there was an illegal mining operation happening somewhere in the rainforest. And some of these miners, in an effort to scare people away from coming anywhere near their operation, they got their hands on jetpacks, wore armor and masks, and then went into villages like Talia's and basically pretended to be aliens and then did, fly off on their jetpacks. However, people like Talia and the other people in her village and many other people who live in the Amazon rainforest, they say those are no miners. Those are either Pelacaras or they are creatures from another world.